Jake Milstein and I both started our careers in TV news. So when a story breaks, we're both wired to move. We're both now in cybersecurity marketing, where that urgency matters more than ever. Because if you're not part of the story early, you're not part of it at all. So, Jake, welcome to Marketing with Maggie. So glad to have you here.
It's great to be here and, joining another former journalist. Although, do you ever lose the title of being a journalist once you have that skepticism and the, drive to be a journalist? I don't know. I don't think we're
No.
former journalists.
Once a journalist, always a journalist in my mind. And truthfully, right now, as marketers, we're storytellers. So we're journalists, but in a different way for brands, right?
For sure. And, I think one, there's the journalism part of it, but two, one of the things that I did was manage newsrooms and helicopters and union contracts. And, hey, I'll tell you, if you ever think you've been to a really difficult like board meeting, wait until you invite a union to it. That you get the shop steward in there and then it becomes a meeting. But I mean, I think, having a journalist join a tech company is a total no-brainer. And I know we're going
Oh,
to talk about it today, but
yeah.
oh man, like, the sense of urgency, the sense of getting things right. I mean, this is what we spent so long in newsrooms doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's just get right into it then, because I think the big thing, we're both also in cybersecurity, which is
We are? Oh
something,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
which has been kind of turned upside down recently with lots of news, especially when the news around Mythos launched. And for someone like you and me, we know how to respond in that breaking news situation. But for a lot of brands, they don't know exactly where to go. So, how should marketing leaders think about putting their brands out there in these news type moments, especially like the one we just went through?
I mean, you're either part of the conversation or you're not. And I think
Yeah.
one of the mistakes that companies make is that they think about them. It's funny, in a sales process, they always say, I'm going to be customer first. But in a comms process, they're not journalist first, or they're not
Yeah.
reader first, they're company first. And that doesn't make any sense, right? If you're going to be customer first, you also have to be audience first.
Yeah.
And if you're audience first, you also have to be journalist first. And so when news breaks, a journalist doesn't sit there and think, let me wait to get some feedback from these three or four companies before I put something on the internet. No, like they have a
Yeah.
drive to get something out right now,
Yeah.
not like 5 minutes. They want to be the first with the story. And if you want to be first with them, you have to be there with them.
No, I mean, you made a good point because, when that moment happened, I went into journalist mode immediately and felt like
Mhm.
we have to be the first ones out there. We have to have the first statement. We have to have the first blog or the social post.
Yep.
Like, were you going through that same feeling? And I'm also wondering, like, are people around me having that same feeling, or is it just me because my instincts and immediately go there?
It's just you. No, I'm just kidding. No, so actually, so when Anthropic posted about Mythos, I was on a plane on the way to an analyst conference between Seattle and Boston. And so it happened while I was on airplane Wi-Fi. And I was so thankful to have a great PR firm and great internal spokespeople and to have a PR flywheel going where
Yeah.
I could just say, wow, this is huge. Here are all the things we need to do. We need to get pitches out. We need to do this. We need to do that. And
Yeah.
we had our first, conversation with a reporter 18 minutes after the news went out. And it's funny because a bunch of people have said to me, "Wow, 18 minutes, that's fast." And I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, didn't feel fast to me. Should have been 15 or 10." So, like, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it should be fast. And I don't care whether you're at 30,000 feet or sitting in your house. Like, if you got to be fast with this stuff.
Yeah, because what happens when you don't, when you're not fast? Like, what is that? What is the
You
issue
become
that,
irrelevant. You
yeah,
become irrelevant. Like if
exactly.
if the story is moving super quickly and you're not a
Yeah.
part of it, then you
Yeah.
will never be a part of it. Because one of
Yeah.
the other things to know is, our internal spokespeople who are at our companies I mean, some of them are great speakers, but like talking to journalists is not necessarily what they do for a living. And
Yeah.
so, they need multiple conversations. So you talk to this publication, then you talk to that publication, you go on and on. And the more publications you touch, the more will be interested in you. And I'll give you a perfect example on the Mythos thing. The first publication we talked to was a small publication that really focuses on like DevSecOps. And but it was because of that that we got an email later that day or that night from the Economist that was like, "Hey, can I talk to Jeff too?" And
Yeah.
like, yeah, every stepping stone matters. And if all you're doing is going out there and pitching yourself to the Wall Street Journal and like the New York Times, you will never get picked up.
Yeah, no. But I mean, I think truthfully too, it's not about earned content in moments like that. It's also owned content. So tell me, I know you spun up a video because that's what you and I do, and I did the
Yep.
same thing.
Yep.
Like, why does that matter in these moments too to I think control the narrative because sometimes in earned media, you can't control what they're going to write. Yes, you do. You get it out there and you want to, but there's a little bit more of an element of being able to have control of the narrative. And that's why you do a mix, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, and part of it is long form versus short form, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to give a quote, let's just talk about Wall Street Journal, right? A Wall Street Journal reporter is not going to, no matter what your company founder or CEO wants, only talk to you. And
Oh,
so they're going to take quotes from from multiple different sources.
yeah.
And yeah, that's just how it works. And they're not going to pick the quote that you think you said that you probably didn't actually say. Like that's not going to happen either. And so part of it is you do have to control what you're saying. And the way that you can do that is through videos, is through your own blogs. I mean, I love videos because from a video, you can create all the other things. From a
Yeah.
blog, you can't go create a video. I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose you could like AI avatar a video, but we'll leave that for another conversation. But no, I mean, the video is the conversation. This thing that we're
Yeah.
doing here, the free flow conversation, like that's where the value is.
Yeah, and I will say we did get in the Wall Street Journal around the Mythos story,
Mhm.
but it was really our data. We did share our perspective and an explanation around
Sure.
the data, but guess what? That did not make it in the story. So it was something where we used own content to then, kind of double down on what that data actually means right now, what it means for the industry, what it means in this moment, and what's happening in cybersecurity as we see it. So that is a great example, and it actually played out exactly like that for us. Um,
But ahead of time, but that's not the first time you've ever talked to the Wall Street Journal,
oh,
right? Like, oh
yeah,
no, you have a relationship the
yeah,
sometimes companies that are like, oh, if we hire like this person, we'll all of a sudden get onto CNN. Like, no, that's not a thing. Like, you have to
yeah,
have a long-standing relationship with journalists,
yeah.
both the
And
publications and the individuals.
yeah, and it's truthfully, it's not an individual relationship sometime, it's a brand
Yeah,
relationship that
yeah,
they have.
I
They
agree.
know that your company always delivers, always gives them what they need in on their deadlines.
Mhm.
That's who they come back to. It's not always the individual. It's that they can rely on you and as a brand to kind of deliver when they need you.
Yeah, I think absolutely as a brand, I think absolutely as individuals, which even takes me to if there's an opportunity, if a journalist asks, if a trusted journalist asks for something and you can't respond because your speaker's out of town, let them know super quick so they can move to
Yes.
somebody else. The urgency is also, hey, we can't comment on this, or what you're asking about might be a customer of ours. We can't respond about this, right? Like you
Yeah.
got to respond super quick, even
Oh,
if
yeah.
it's a we can't talk about this. So you maintain that trust for the next opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, I want to ask, when you're in those situations like we were just in, is there ever a right move to just stay silent? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I mean, I think so. A couple of things. Number one, when you're talking about urgency, I worked in a newsroom, NBC station in the Bay Area, which at the time was, I think, News Channel 11 and then became NBC Bay Area for those who are in the Bay Area. Well, the the boss of the newsroom, the news director at the time, he had a newsroom mantra. It was a mission statement, and it said, "When you go out, you report on the best available truth." And I love that
Yeah.
sentence because you don't always know all of the facts.
Yeah.
And so when you have urgency about things, you report the best available truth. Now, if you're in a crisis comms situation and you don't have the best available truth and you don't know enough to be responsible about what you're going to say, especially if you're in a breach situation or something, then yeah, sometimes it's better to be quiet. Now, that's not always true. There
Yeah.
are times like there's a company that I did crisis comms to help a couple years ago, and they wanted to be silent, but the news was already out on Twitter, and people
Yeah.
were already saying, "Hey, what's going on with this company?" And in that case, you have to say something's going on. Otherwise, the internet goes wild with speculation. But yeah, there are definitely times. I mean, what do you think? Don't you think there are times where you
Oh,
should be
yeah.
silent?
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if it's complete dead silence. I think it goes back to, especially if it's a journalist asking you, you have to explain why you're not why you're being silent, but you have to give them something. You know what I mean? Whether it's a holding statement or something like that, that you just don't go radio silent. But yeah, I do agree. There's many situations where I would say, yeah, stay out of the fire. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Not worth getting into. But for the most part, I do think, especially because what I'm seeing now is the landscape has changed so much. I think a lot of stories are told um, in social media these days, especially B2B, LinkedIn. You're seeing instead of maybe getting your CEO in the Wall Street Journal or on CNN, they're going straight to their LinkedIn account and sharing their. And I think there's some interesting shifts. Are you seeing that shift as well around, spokespeople just going straight to their branded, favorite social channel and sharing versus going to a media outlet?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I think that is because the entire ecosystem of journalism has changed so dramatically.
Yeah.
The newsroom, many of the newsrooms where I used to work are a quarter of the size or less than they used to be. And, I think we've seen layoffs at all these cybersecurity publications, whether it be, dark reading. I mean, we just saw the layoffs at the Washington Post, including their tech folks. And so, we talk about getting statements in all of these publications, but these publications at this point are all a shell of what they used to be. And that doesn't mean they're not great publications, and that doesn't mean they're not worthwhile, but but you have to remember that one of the reasons that that happened is because the media landscape became fragmented. It's not that if you want news at the end of the day anymore, you sit down at 4:59 p.m. and watch the 5 o'clock news. It's that you can get the news anytime you want. I mean, if you just had anyone in tech give me 20 news sources, they could rattle off 20 news sources, right? And sometimes it's blogs, and sometimes it's somebody they follow on Twitter, and sometimes it's a podcast, and on and on and on and on and on. And that has caused marketers, yes, this is your fault, to not, spend money on advertising on the Wall Street Journal, on advertising on whatever publication. And so there's less money and fewer journalists. So we've created the situation that we're now in. Great. So what do you do about that? Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have your own platform. That's why it's important to have the owned content. I think that's why it's important to have a great social profile for your organization and more specifically for your people. I think all of those things are increasingly important. That's why so many organizations, everyone's like, "Oh, we need our own podcast." And here we are on a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another thing that's shaking up the media landscape and everything is AI. Because now what people are doing, instead of turning on their TV for the 5 o'clock news or even going to the Wall Street Journal or whatever your favorite publication is, they're researching people on AI. So now it's brought this big thing around AI generation, like AI optimization, engine
Sure.
optimization.
Hmm.
Sorry. The term AEO, GEO, I know we haven't quite landed on either one yet in the industry, but hopefully everyone knows what I'm talking about. Um, that's really changing things and actually bringing PR in a new light around why you have a public relations strategy. And one of the things you asked on LinkedIn recently was around whether press releases should be written for AEO or GEO. Of course, I chimed in because that's what I do. And I said, yes, because if you're not doing it, your competition is.
Right.
How do you feel about it?
So I'm going to tell you a story. I work at Contrast Security, and in the last year, we've been named in two major analyst reports. And I sent out press releases for both of them. And the first one I did not optimize. Um, didn't think about it, wrote a great press release, greatest press release I've ever written, but no, it wasn't optimized for GEO. It didn't have the FAQ, it didn't have the structure, and I didn't put it through a GEO analyzer. The second one, I did all of that. I put the questions at the FAQ at the bottom. I did all of the things that you do to optimize something for AEO, GEO, LLMEO, whatever you want to call it. And now, if you go to ChatGPT and you ask about contrast security, the first thing it says is contrast just won an award. I was like, wow. I mean, it didn't just work, like it worked lickety split. And so it's one of those things where you'd love to go back in history and resend all of your old press releases with the trick. And by the way,
But
I
if
don't think
they're on your website, you could go back and update
you
those.
can. I think that I think what you said before about that
That,
earned media and
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
that the LLMs are picking up things from Business Wire and wherever
Yeah.
they're picking from the actual send of the release because the release goes to so many publications. I think that this, by the way, I will predict that this is as a tactic gonna go away.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where the LLMs will figure out that this is too easily gamed and that this will go away, but it certainly works right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like SEO. You remember it was so hard to keep up? It's
Right.
going to be the same way.
Right. Right. Oh, and I mean, and now, have getting things on Reddit is super important. So I know organizations that are trying to figure out how to put their press release on Reddit without having people on Reddit destroy them, which is what happens on Reddit. So, I mean, people are trying to figure out how to really game the GEO system here. Um, and it seems to be working, which we'll see how much longer that lasts. But yeah, if you're sending press releases today and you're not optimizing them, like you're kind of crazy. I mean, what have you found in yours?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, I think, every day we're working on different strategies, but from an earned and owned
Mhm.
perspective around AEO and GEO. But yeah, it's something that I think you have to constantly monitor. But I agree, if you're not doing it, your competition's doing it. And yeah. Um, and then guess who's coming up in better light, right?
Right, right. And
Um,
by the way, in a newsroom, we always had this very funny thing. I had an assignment editor, and for folks who don't know, the assignment editors are the folks who sit up on a desk, and they're the ones who like get the breaking news immediately, and then they tell the reporters like Maggie, "Hey, go here,
yeah.
go drive there." That's what assignment editors do, and it might be in a local newsroom that all four stations, five stations, whatever you have, are all reporting on the same story, and somebody will always yell, "Oh, channel 5 got that interview, our story sucked." And so one of my assignment editors, great guy named Steve, said, "Do you know where news looks best? On the other station." And so, I think that's a lesson for all of us. Like we all have folks who look at the competitor's website and look at the competitor's press releases, and news always looks better on the other station for whatever psychological reason.
Oh, that is interesting. Well, what's your advice for people on marketing with Maggie, whether it's through, getting your story out there, taking advantage of a news moment like a journalist, or just making sure you're staying up to date on AEO Geo?
Well, so I would say that my overall message is always urgency, urgency, urgency.
Yeah.
Like the more urgent you can be with your marketing, the better you're going to be. If you are waiting and waiting and waiting to get something out there, if you're waiting
Yeah.
and waiting and waiting to get a message out there, if you're waiting and waiting and waiting to answer a journalist, you won't be successful. The companies that are successful are the ones that are urgent and put together. Now, I didn't say urgent and not put together,
Yeah.
urgent and put together. And I think that, one of the things that we as journalists, all learned to do was to get our work done by the time the newscast aired. Like you can't have the newscast start and have your story not be ready.
Yeah.
And so I'd say hire a journalist and then use them for their urgency.
Yes. Hire a journalist. Hire us everywhere, right? Oh, Jake, this was such a fun conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Oh my gosh, it's so great to see you and join you for this. I feel like we should like create some club for like, former, wait, we didn't say former journalists, people who used to work in newsrooms who are now in cyber. We need a club.
Yes, we do. It would be such a fun club.
We'll
We'll
order
get that
pizza
going.
on election night and we'll all get together. It'll be fun.
Yes, the pizza, of course.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Good seeing you.